Everyone here for the style workshop? Style 2. And William, Layla, Nikki, and Ash Faulkner work with David. You apparently know David. Are you in David's class, Tara's class? Tara, David. Okay, cool. So it's the mechanics of style 2, which is emphasis. So today we're focusing on emphasis. And if you've, don't think we have too many online people today. But we'll be talking about a little thing, seemingly little thing, how to make sure the takeaway point in your sentence is something people take away, that they see what you're trying to get at, but also a bigger thing of why that's important. If you are burying the main point in what you came to say, even if you've got a really important point, people will say, well, this document's confusing, or I wasn't sure what it was about. And you'll think, well, I said it right there. But it was in the middle of the sentence, or it was in the middle of the paragraph, and so even though you said it right there, it wasn't exactly where it needed to be for people to capture it. It turns out that they look for that at the end of things. They look for the takeaway point, the new information, at the end of the sentence, and they look for the takeaway point, the new information, at the end of the paragraph. So this scales up. And I'll just read these. Which sentence would you rather hear about your new roommate? He's rather strange, but people like him. Or, people like him, but he's rather strange. Hey, says Leonard. Why?
The more negative is said first, and the more positive is said last.
Yeah. He's rather strange, but people like it. The thing you need to remember, the main point, the bottom line, is that he's likable. Strangeness, that's background information. You don't need to know. But you do need to remember that he's liked. Which sentence would you rather hear from your boss? You deserve a raise, but times are hard. Times are hard, but you deserve a raise. Same English words, different order. Which is better? The second one. Why? Times are hard, but you deserve a raise. Why?
The emphasis is placed on that you do deserve it.
Yeah, so even there's a kind of an implied even though. The stuff at the front end is background, even given the fact that times are hard. That doesn't really matter. What does really matter is you deserve a raise. In that version, you're getting the money. Which sentence is more likely to sell you lawn fertilizer? Although the blades of grass will brown and die, the roots will remain alive, capable of regenerating when moisture returns. Or, the roots will remain alive and capable of regenerating the plant when moisture returns, but the blades of grass will brown and die. We laugh, because that last one is a story about death. The first one is a story about regeneration. And same thing, same plant, same product, but one tells you something positive at the end. America. Which sentence emphasizes American generosity? Of all countries, these are both true. Of all countries, the US gives the largest dollar amount to foreign aid. But in fact, this represents a much smaller percentage compared with other nations giving, percentage of our wealth, percentage of GDP. In fact, it represents a much smaller percentage of our GDP than other nations giving, but of all countries, the US gives the largest dollar amount to foreign aid. If you got a check, it likely came from us, even though we had more money to start with. So, in the first one, what's the emphasis? Represents a much smaller amount compared with other nations giving. So Sweden doesn't have a lot of money, but what they've got, they give a big chunk of it to foreign aid. Isn't that nice of them?
Yes.
Yes. But America has quite a bit more money than Sweden. We give a smaller slice of our pie, but we have a bigger pie. So the smaller slice of our pie is still more money than you're getting from the schools. So largest dollar amount to foreign emphasis, right? So you do it. Let's talk about this example. And do you have something to write with? You do. You do. Yeah. Yes. With the tightening of state funding for education, comma, budget cuts seem inevitable for schools nationwide these days. Now, there's a couple things going on here. First of all, we know from 5 seconds ago, you want the main point at the end. Also, you don't want to trail off. We haven't really talked about that. But anything that is at the end should be really important. Otherwise, your sentences will drift and feel ragged and hard to follow. So we want to identify the key thing, move it to the end, make sure we've saved that valuable real estate at the end of the sentence for something that's really key. In this case, I've asked you to emphasize here that the problem originates with state governments. If you look at the way the sentence is written, now it's emphasizing a broad problem. This is true all over the country, nationwide. With the tightening of state funding for ed, budget cuts seem inevitable for schools nationwide these days. With probably some extra words at the end. We know it's these days because it's in the present tense. So I'm asking you to rewrite it yourself right now, emphasizing that the problem originates with states. Let's see if I can make it bigger for you. Schools nationwide with the tightening of state funding for education. Okay, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if you come to some of the other style sessions, we talk about the value of using human characters. So if you were to plug in some human beings who might be responsible here, besides just state funding, just a little bit abstract, what might you say? Who are the humans involved with determining state funding? Legislation in Congress. So at the state level, we often talk about the state legislature. Or legislatures, which are people. You'll see journalists a lot of times refer to lawmakers, which is a nice, good word. State lawmakers. So in other words, people, because there are human beings who do this. Governors and state senators and so forth have to make these decisions. So what do you think, Layla?
I kind of rearranged the sentence to where the last part would be with the tightening of state funding for education.
Okay, so what's the whole thing?
So it'd be budget cuts seem inevitable for schools.
Budget cuts seem inevitable for schools nationwide.
These days, I kind of cut out these days with the tightening of state funding for education.
With the tightening of state funding for education. And if we were to turn that into humans, we might say something like, as state lawmakers tighten budgets, or something like that. or if we didn't want to repeat budgets, type funding. Same thing, this is a little small on the screen here. It's designed for a bigger screen. Some public schools across the United States have signed contracts with advertisers for various reasons. We do that one to emphasize that the schools are public. They're not private schools, they're public schools. Officially free, officially owned by we the people, but in practice, also getting extra money from private advertisers. Some public schools across the US have signed contracts with advertisers for various reasons. Again, there might be extra words you can cut out here. Feel free to cut them.
I just read advertisers have signed contracts with public schools across the United States.
Okay, now if we put across the United States at the very end, what are people going to pick up on? Which is fine.
Schools across the United States.
That it's nationwide. So that would be a good way to emphasize the breadth of this, that across the US, this is going on.
And the topic is for public schools.
But what if we wanted to hit even harder that these are not just any schools, they're public? What's
For various reasons, some advertisers have signed contracts with public schools.
oh, right, okay. And for various reasons isn't all that informative. And I do want William's point about this being nationwide.
Right.
So maybe I could use that front end of the sentence to say something like, across the US,
Right, across the US.
Advertisers, and what's the rest of it?
Advertisers have signed contracts with
Public schools. Something similar?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And now we're going to look at a national hero here. Jonas Salk, hopefully we've all heard of him. By refusing to put a patent on his polio vaccine, Jonas Salk forfeited a profit that Forbes has estimated at $7 billion. But he's hailed as an international hero for safeguarding the health of all people. As it's written right now, what does it emphasize? Some bad sound.
There's a big but he's hailed an international hero. So
Mhm.
there's a positive ending to the sentence.
Positive ending, hailed as a hero for safeguarding the health of all people. But when, Layla, you say a positive ending, it sounds like you're suggesting something else wasn't so positive.
Well, the refusal, and then you hear about it's kind of ethical at the end,
Mhm.
where there's health for all people. But
So he could have said, hey, I've got a cure to one of the worst diseases in the world. I'm going to be a rich man.
Yeah.
Right? And people will pay anything I ask for this.
Yeah.
He didn't go that route.
Right.
So what if we wanted to emphasize something different? William, what else could we underline here? Instead of hero safeguarding health of all people,
You emphasize all the money you lost.
you could emphasize the money he lost. How would you?
By putting the forfeit of profit at the end.
Yeah.
Oh,
So can we write that out just for, so here it is, a writing workshop, we've got pens. Write it out to change the emphasis to something else. And it's really up to you what you want to emphasize. It depends what the paper is about. It could be a paper about polio. It could be a paper about patents. It could be a paper about finance. It could be a paper about famous doctors. Depending on our topic and our audience, we discuss different stuff. So we ended polio there. Polio vaccine, what? Where else could we put it if we wanted to? This is just a theory.
Right.
If we wanted to move the 7 billion right to the end, how would we fit in the polio vaccine?
It's here, just somewhere at first.
So although he is an international hero for safeguarding the health of all people by refusing, by refusing to back on the polio vaccine, Jonas Salk forfeited a profit of $7 billion. And then there, everybody knows we're going to be talking about profits. What do you think? So Jonas Salk is hailed as an international hero for safeguarding the health of all people by refusing to put a patent on his polio vaccine. However, Forbes estimated that he forfeited a profit, and probably not just estimated that. Forbes estimated he forfeited a profit of some $7 billion. And Layla, your version?
My version was just focusing on like the polio, and so I put Jonas Salk has hailed as an international hero. Has been hailed as an international hero by refusing to patent his polio vaccine.
Mm-hmm. And so we would tuck in the 7 billion much earlier.
Yeah.
Although he forfeited a profit that Forbes has estimated at some $7 billion.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And here, just I'll read them some options. Advertisers are signing contracts with schools, many of them public schools. So sometimes we repeat something, for instance, right? Not to be repetitive, but to underline it. Schools are cutting budgets across the country, but the problem originates with individual states' budget cuts. Or as more states cut education funding, if we want to emphasize that it was nationwide, schools cut budgets across the U.S. So what do? To recap, we move less important information away from the end of the sentence to make sure that there's space available. This is just an algorithm we can run in our heads. Whenever we're looking back over a document. I'm assuming at this point you've written the thing, and now you're thinking, how could I make it better? Make sure you've got space at the end of the sentence. Put key information in that position of emphasis. And this scales up to the paragraph level as promised. The end of your paragraph should nail down your key takeaway point. Of course, we know about topic sentences leading into the main issue, but the bottom line should be the bottom line.
Your conclusion, like for a paper, that's where you probably need the most emphasis, right?
Sure. And you can scale this up to the document level as well. Although, of course, you also want your introduction to lay out the key points,
right.
So it's not a mystery.
Right.
Now, what are you guys working on right now? Is this 1101? 1101 or 1143 in William's case? What are some things that you've got written that you're maybe revising in this one? You guys do like final portfolio?
Well, we're doing right now like a paper that's like the right to respond, right? And like an analysis basically on like a response to an issue that's going on in like culture.
Mhm.
So we're analyzing like either a blog or like just any sort of issue. And so we really have to emphasize like the situation and analyze like the emotional response or like the logos and the pathos and like all those sort of appeals.
That sounding right? Yeah, and what are you working on if you don't mind me asking?
For me, it's like all individual, so we pick our own. For me, it's like the Kesha issue, like the most recent thing that happened in court, and there was a blog that was really like offended by it, and they responded, and so I'm analyzing that basically.
And
Mine original is a Yelp employee who wrote an open letter to her CEO complaining about her job, and then she got fired, and then there's a response
she got fired?
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
then there's a response saying that millennials are ready for the workplace.
Interesting. And in 1143?
It's a project on memes. So
Yep.
I did the one with Zach Galifianakis as Marty Huggins saying before thanks Obama, because Hannah Montana was still, or Miley Cyrus was still Hannah Montana before you were president. So,
It sounds like they wish they were working on this.
Yes.
And vehicle assignment. So it sounds like a lot of fun. And so what have you actually written for this?
I wrote about a conservative point of view from Marty Huggins, and then how it's like satirical, that they're just really portraying him as an extremist, that like the point of view that blames everything on Obama, even when it doesn't correlate at all. And then,
Right, that's the joke.
yeah,
That's what it means.
and then that's the incongruency there. So that's what I wrote about. Sorry.
So do you have anything with you? That's where I'm headed at this. Have you brought anything of yours that you've written?
On my laptop.
Okay, do you have?
I don't have mine with me because it's on paper, because I wrote my rough draft, so I don't have it with me.
In any form?
No,
Okay,
because I haven't typed it out, because I just came in for, what you call it? I came in for a tutoring session today.
I gotcha, cool, sure. Yeah, and so when you have more advanced, planning, if you're back for a workshop, when we can, we like to leave some minutes at the end to work on something of your own. So let's maybe just look at these. Can you pull up a paragraph that you think you might want to revise?
Yeah. Just like a one in the middle.
Yeah. And just, you can ask yourself these questions, I'm going to walk around, but just looking at the ends of the sentences and at the end of the paragraph, is it delivering for you? Is that key takeaway point there where you want it to be? So, yeah, thanks. So in this case, we know it's about online. So maybe something like targets the president for ridiculous and unconnected things.
Okay. Yeah. That's helpful, right?
And so here a keyword is struggles. You might want to say, but also the he and the author have faced similar struggles.
Right.
So we come off that with that. Just let's maybe take these last 3 to 5 minutes and go through a paragraph of your own and really zoom in on those important words, important points. Make sure they're at the end of the sentence. Not sort of at the end, not in the middle, but right in there.
You can help me look at this one?
Yeah, I do.
This is kind of it's all right, but
And so when you say, so this is like, so you can be the butt of a joke.
yeah.
But I don't think you can receive it. So you might just want to change the wording. And it sounds like this is an even though he had nothing to do with these failures. He continued to be the butt of the joke.
Okay. Yeah, like It gets the point across my very strong. It's the same
It's
thing.
an important word, I think you should leave it in there, but, I think the B is, because it's like a phrase. You know, a lot of times we try to avoid weak verbs, is and be, but in this case, you are the title joke, right?
That's a good section.
Can we look at the next paragraph?
Oh, that's.
Or is it the one above?
I'm gonna do that first.
How about that last sentence? What do you want that last sentence to be?
Right.
I guess you had it in.
Oh, yeah, no.
Although the upside is the,
I know.
student effect.
It was the same.
Terminate her as an employee, it's like that has to have some effect of how she goes to that employer.
So when you say it's taken into consideration, who's considering?
Yeah, CEO.
So you want to specify that? When you say it's still taken into consideration, we have to be sure who's doing it, considering. How's your last sentence?
I tend to like write it. I like writing the paragraphs and I go back and like round them off because it's just how it works.
How do you round off a paragraph?
No.
What does that mean? I think I
But
know.
I like write it with the content that I want to be in it, and I'll be like, all right, there's all the content, and I'll just keep going, and then I'll come back and I'm like, well, I can't just leave it. Like I can't make my main point or my third point of the second, third point of the paragraph, and then just leave it. Like I come back and I don't know, add a sentence to make it sound better.
Yeah,
So it doesn't add to.
So what does such a sentence do? When we add that sentence to make it sound better, this will be our final point. When we add that sentence to make it sound better, when we round off the paragraph, what are we looking for in that nice rounded sentence?
Trying to reinforce the point of this paragraph.
A strong finale to, like, enforce that the reader understands what the point is and what it's about.
Does anybody have one that they like in your documents in front of you? Like, oh, I crushed it. That paragraph really is clean.
So,
You may have a decent, how's it go?
the two supporting components consist of the conservative point of view that blames anything on Obama, which is portrayed by Marty Huggins, and the drastic changes Miley Cyrus made from her previous character, Hannah Montana.
Okay, and that comes early in the document?
Yes.
So you're kind of introducing these two prongs,
Yeah.
and then you're going to tell us about each of those. Where exactly is that sentence?
In the first paragraph.
In the first paragraph, yeah, so that would be logical. And that's a super crucial point, right? The end of the first paragraph is where we're promising what we're going to talk about. And so if we
Oh,
get
yeah.
one sentence right, it has to be that.
Yeah.
But I want to suggest to you that this happens right across the document. That the end of each paragraph should be that good.
The emphasis, yeah.
Yes.
Works.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thank you.